Hey everybody, this is Mark from Guillotined Chemistry. In my last video, I summarized the findings of 24 more papers that could be used for senko hanabi. And in this video, I'm actually going to show you all the results, not a summary of them. So this is the sample pack I got from Hiromi Paper. There were over 50 samples of washi paper, and it was just really neat to get to handle and check all those papers out. Now, again, I was only able to work with about 24 of these samples, but still getting to see all these different types of paper was a real treat. Now, before I get to the Hiromi paper, I just wanted to point out that I did try out smoking paper, and I think it is a great alternative to Gampi paper. It ends up being about the same weight. As I point out in the original video, you might want to consider getting a roll of the smoking paper as opposed to individual cut sheets because they tend to be pretty short. But as you can see, these are pretty nice. So I had success with smoking paper. I know Dr. Vandersit likes smoking paper too. I don't think it's going to be any cheaper than Gampi paper, but it ends up being able to be bought in smaller amounts, so it's less of a commitment. So there were some rayon and inkjet papers that I thought I would try, and they were pretty bad. As you can see, there's a lot of what I call overburn, and that's the idea of the flame racing around the pellet and then burning the paper above the dross ball. That pretty much dooms it to falling off. Now, the polypropylene paper I thought was just awful. It shouldn't be a surprise that burning polypropylene smells, but it also was a terrible burn. You'll notice that a lot of these papers also started to unravel as you burn them. So it was worth trying out these papers, but I think that's sort of a dead end unless somebody else can get this to work better than I did. Boy, this paper here really had an awful smelling smoke. If you like the smell of burning fireworks, this one is not it. Now, the main reason I bought the sample pack was to test out Kozo paper. I had heard that it was a possible replacement for Gampi paper, so I went ahead and started checking them out. Now, it's no surprise the thick paper really didn't work all that well. Now, even though Kozo paper is stronger, you'll notice that on a lot of these, you'll see a lot of like, I would call them like stray threads and stuff hanging off the side. A lot of the fibers kind of made it look a little bit more stringy. Aesthetically, I don't think that looks quite as nice as the Gampi paper. I don't know if it really made a big difference in the way that it burned, but it was a little furrier than I liked my senkos to be. So 15 GSM is really kind of hitting the sweet spot of what I think is good for senko hanabi, but this really didn't make a great draw spell. You'll hear me giving it a little bit of extra oxygen. And again, looks a little furry. One of the things I noticed with this Kozo paper is that there was a lot more of sort of a flare out at the beginning of the burn. So I don't think the Kozo paper was holding the powder in as tightly as the Gampi paper does. Now again, that could certainly be due to my technique, but as this paper got thinner and thinner, there was a lot more flare out and burn at the beginning, and that means that the powder was leaving the senko, not getting pulled up into the dross ball. And 10 GSM Gampi paper I think works really well, but this 10 GSM Kozo? Again, you can see how much flare out we have there. We probably lost a lot of powder there. And so any dross ball that's going to form from this point is going to be a lot smaller. Maybe some different types of paper around that 15, 13, 12 GSM might work better. I don't know. Now I did go even thinner on the Kozo paper, and as you can imagine, it's more of the same. So it was a little disappointing with Kozo paper. It seemed to be a little too thick, or it tended to be losing a lot of the powder, so you didn't get quite as nice of a dross ball. So there it goes again. You can see little bits of it being blown off. Again, that's losing a lot of the powder that should have went into making a nice dross ball. And as you can see, once that burned, it really just flared out. That 5 GSM paper really couldn't hold the dross ball together, which is why what's left is so small, in my opinion. Now, I didn't even try to burn these other papers, but I just want to show you how neat some of these papers are. Again, it was a real treat to get to handle 5 GSM paper, 3.5 GSM paper. Almost like a gossamer. Very, very thin. Really cool stuff. 3 GSM. Again, remember the typical notebook paper is probably anywhere from 70 to 90. So that's pretty thin. Again, the Kozo mixes, there really wasn't anything they brought to the table. 50 GSM paper, still not as thick as like notebook paper, but just nah. In fact, a lot of these Kozo mixed papers are pretty thick. I don't know, maybe these Kozo mixes would have worked better if we could have had thinner Kozo paper. whether it was Kozo or a mix of Kozo and something else, 30 GSM paper just isn't really going to work that well for senko, in my opinion. Although this one's looking okay. Maybe I take it back. This Mulberry Thin paper just had a lot of overburn. You can see that flame just race past the dross ball and just rip right up to the paper. Again, maybe a better technique might be able to hold that flame off a little bit, but this could have formed a pretty decent dross ball. But as you can see, once that paper burns above it, you're pretty much shot. So this close-up is neat. You get to see some of the long fibers of this Kozo paper. Again, you can kind of see the smoke blowing as I give this some supplemental oxygen to get it started. No shame in that if it needs it. In fact, sometimes at the end of a senko, I like to give it a little puff just to get it a bit more of oxygen to give it a big flourish at the end. But once these got started, this is nice. Again, I'm a big fan of a 10 GSM Gampi paper, but I wanted to see, since I had them, if any of these other Gampi samples might be better. And a thick paper is still a thick paper. It doesn't work well. Notice again, with a little bit of supplemental oxygen, I was able to get this started. At least one of them. This 24 GSM, just too thick. Notice that overburn on the left there. Once that flame gets past your dross ball, you're out of luck. Now, I thought the 20 GSM Gampi paper might work well, and it certainly wrapped well, but I would not call it a great burn. It just seemed like it had trouble chewing through that paper for some reason. Now, I don't know if there's much of a difference between the natural and the white. I assume the white has been bleached in some way. But for senko, I don't think we would really care all that much. Although once that gets started, that's a nice looking guy over there. It was tough because I could only make 2 senko per square, and they were still very small and truncated. Again, a half of a 3x3 square is not close to what we typically do. We typically like our senkos to be about 11 inches long, 10 or 11 inches long. 27 centimeters, I think. So a 3-inch senko is a bit of a compromise. But again, notice the one that hung in there and actually got started. Doesn't look bad. Doesn't look bad. So, saving the best for last, I think the most intriguing paper was this 15 GSM Usuyo Gampi. So what was neat about this 15 GSM paper is that it felt an awful lot like the same paper that I had in this professional senko. Now, I have no idea what paper was in that strip that was used for professional senko hanabi, but it felt the same. And I really enjoyed the 15 GSM paper. It had a nice feel to it. It was easy and fun to wrap. And even though, like the one on the left, the dross ball dropped off at the beginning, I don't know if you saw that, it still rallied okay. And the one on the right really had a nice burn. So all of these senkos had the same powder composition. We're pretty much using like a 4-2-1 mixture, 4 parts potassium nitrate, 2 parts sulfur, and 1 part charcoal slash soot. But what I like is a senko that gets all the way to those final stages. And again, you can see that's a nice looking wrap. I'm no expert on wrapping, but they look great. In fact, I liked this 15 GSM paper so much that I went out and I bought myself a roll from Hiromi paper. Again, did not sponsor this video. Paid for it just like any other customer. Again, just look at this, just wonderfully delightful. So there you go. This is the last paper. That was, I think, 24 different paper samples from a pack of 50 from Hiromi paper. Consider doing your own research. Let me know what other papers you try out. Leave them in the comments below. I'd love to see what you're doing with this stuff. And although this might be the end of my research on senko hanabi paper for now, I think there are some interesting things still to be done with coatings and things like that. A lot can be done on technique. There's a lot more work to be done on charcoal and soot production. There's always something interesting to check out with senko hanabi. Can't be senko all the time, but it's sure nice when we can get around to it. Thanks for watching and have a great day.